The Grand Concert Hall in New York City shimmered with golden lights, its chandeliers casting a warm glow on the polished marble floors. Excitement buzzed through the well-dressed crowd as they found their velvet seats, eagerly waiting for the legendary pianist, Leonardo Bell, to perform. He was a man of brilliance and arrogance, known not just for his flawless fingers, but for his cold heart. This evening was another show in his world tour, and the rich, the famous, and the critics were all in attendance. Among them, unnoticed by most, was a quiet teenage girl named Emma. She wore a simple blue dress and clutched a white cane in her hand. Her shoes were scuffed, her coat a bit too thin for the season. Emma was blind since birth, but her love for music burnt brighter than any chandelier in the hall. She had begged her mother to save for weeks so she could sit in the front row and feel the music vibrate through her body. It wasn't about seeing the performance, it was about experiencing it. As the lights dimmed and the announcer welcomed the audience, Emma tilted her head slightly, listening closely. Her fingers tapped nervously on her lap, echoing the rhythm. In her heart, people around her whispered, casting side glances. "What's a blind girl doing in the front row?" Someone muttered. Another scoffed, "She won't even know what's happening." Backstage, Leonardo caught sight of her through the curtains. He leaned to his assistant and sneered. "Front row, really? They're letting anyone in now?" His assistant chuckled, and Leonardo smirked. "Can't even see the keys, but sitting where the view's the best. What a waste." But Emma didn't hear them. Her world was already full of imagined colors, of melodies she'd built in her mind over years of sitting quietly at her second-hand piano at home. She didn't need eyes to dream, and tonight, as the great Leonardo prepared to perform, she didn't know that her presence would stir more than just stares. It would spark a moment the world would never forget, a moment when talent, soul, and quiet courage would rise from the shadows and shine brighter than any spotlight. The applause that followed, Leonardo Bell's first flawless performance, echoed through the concert hall like thunder. He rose from the grand piano with a self-satisfied grin, soaking in the praise like a king among peasants. With a dramatic flair, he bowed, then turned to the audience, his voice smoothly sliding into the microphone. "Ah, music," he said, smiling. "So powerful, so delicate, but you know, ... He gestured casually toward the front row. "I often wonder, can someone truly appreciate music if they can't even see the passion behind it?" A ripple of awkward laughter spread through the room. A few people chuckled politely, unsure if he was joking, but others turned their eyes toward the girl. He was clearly pointing at Emma, the blind girl who sat motionless, her hands resting in her lap, her expression calm. "She probably thinks I played the violin just now," Leonardo added with a smirk. Laughter followed, sharper this time. Emma's cheeks flushed. She felt the weight of hundreds of eyes press against her like heat. Her ears picked up every syllable, every chuckle, every cruel grin painted in sound. Yet still, she didn't lower her head. Instead, she slowly stood up. Her hands gently gripped her cane as she took a steady breath and spoke. Her voice clear and soft, but full of quiet confidence. "Maybe, may I try?" Gasps fluttered through the room. People looked around in disbelief. Was she serious? A blind girl wanted to play that piano, the one Leonardo just used. Leonardo laughed out loud, raising a brow. "You," he scoffed. "This isn't a classroom talent show, darling." Before anyone else could speak, an old voice rang from the back. It was the janitor, Mr. Harris, a man no one ever noticed, who swept the halls and tuned the pianos when no one else was around. He stepped forward, eyes misty. "I've heard her play, in the quiet corners. Long after you'll leave. She doesn't play for applause or praise. She plays because her soul doesn't know how not to." The audience fell into stunned silence. Even Leonardo's smile faded. Emma, heart-pounding, took a step forward toward the stage, not to prove anyone wrong, but because music had always been the one place she didn't need to see to be seen. Emma's fingers hovered just above the keys as the heavy silence of the concert hall wrapped around her. Her cane had been set aside. The polished bench beneath her felt too grand, too important for someone like her, a girl used to second-hand instruments and broken pedals. But this moment, unreal as it felt, was hers now. She took a breath. Then, like a whisper, her hands descended onto the ivory. The first notes emerged soft and hesitant, as if feeling out the space, like a child testing the temperature of deep water. The audience leaned in. Even those who had laughed now sat frozen, not in mockery but in anticipation. Then the melody began to unfold. Emma didn't play with the mechanical precision of a trained virtuoso. No, her music came in waves, imperfect yet overflowing with emotion. Every note trembled with stories of nights spent practicing by candlelight, of fingers bleeding on chipped keys, of loneliness filled with song. She didn't follow any sheet music. She had none. She had learned by listening, memorizing, and by placing her trust in rhythm, tone, and heart. What poured from her fingers was not classical, it was personal. A lullaby and a cry for hope woven together in pure sound. Tears welled in the eyes of the audience. Strangers reached for each other's hands. Even the critics, cold and sharp in their usual reviews, found their pens idle. Their hearts caught up in the wings. Leonardo stood speechless, his mouth slightly open. He couldn't deny it. This was unlike anything he had ever heard. She wasn't playing better than him. She was playing something deeper than him. She was telling the truth through music, a truth he had long forgotten in his chase for fame. Emma's final chord lingered like a prayer, and in that suspended moment, as the last vibration faded into silence, the concert hall wasn't filled with applause, not yet. It was filled with stillness, with awe, the kind that comes not from perfection, but from witnessing something genuinely human. Then, without a single cue, the audience rose to its feet in thunderous applause, and Emma, still seated, still facing a darkness only she knew, smiled. She had spoken in the only language she trusted, and the world had finally listened. The thunder of applause rolled like waves crashing onto a shore, rising higher with each second. The audience had gone from stunned silence to something electric, an eruption of emotion that echoed through the grand hall. People stood with tears in their eyes, clapping as if their hands could somehow say what words could not. Many didn't even fully understand what they had just witnessed, but they knew it had moved them deeply, profoundly. Emma sat motionless at the piano, her hands resting gently on the keys, her face tilted slightly upward as if she were soaking in the sound. She couldn't see their standing ovation, but she felt it in the tremble of the floorboards, in the rush of the air, in the warm energy rising all around her. Her heart pounded in her chest, not with nerves this time, but with something else. Peace. For the first time in her life, she had been truly heard. From the back of the stage, Leonardo stepped forward, his usual swagger gone. His tailored suit still gleamed under the lights, but the man inside it looked smaller somehow, humbled, hushed. His applause joined the crowd slowly, and then he walked to Emma, each step echoing across the polished stage. He knelt beside her, no mic, no drama, just honesty. "I mocked you," he said quietly, so only those in the front row could hear. "And yet, you reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place." Emma turned her head in his direction and offered a gentle smile. "Music doesn't need to be seen," she said softly. "It just needs to be felt." Leon stared at her for a moment, then stood and did something no one expected. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a golden plaque, his most recent international award, given just a week ago in Vienna. Without ceremony, he placed it gently on the piano next to her. "This," he said, his voice cracking slightly, "belongs to you." Gasps rippled through the audience. Phones recorded. Tears flowed freely. But Emma didn't take the plaque. She simply laid her hand on it for a moment, then returned her fingers to the piano. She didn't need awards. She had already won something far more powerful: hearts. The video of Emma's performance, captured by dozens of smartphones, spread across the internet like wildfire. Within hours, it was everywhere on news channels, social media feeds, and the homepages of global websites. The headlines wrote themselves: "Blind Girl Silences, Concert Hall, and the World with One Soulful Performance." Mocked by a maestro, she played with her heart and changed lives. In cities across America and far beyond, people stopped what they were doing to watch the girl with closed eyes and open soul pour herself into the piano. Musicians wept. Children with disabilities found hope. Thousands commented not just on her talent, but on her courage to stand up, to speak up, to play when no one believed in her. Within a week, Emma had been invited to perform on morning talk shows, at Carnegie Hall, and even at the White House. But she declined most of them, not out of pride, but because she wanted to return to her first love, music, shared quietly. And honestly, she accepted just one invitation: to open a foundation that provided music education and instruments to blind and disabled children. It was named Hear Me, Feel Me. Back at her modest home, Emma still practiced on the old piano that had broken keys and scratched wood. It was the same one she learned on, the one her mother had bought from a thrift store, and it remained her favorite. She always said it was perfectly flawed, just like life. Leonardo, once known for his arrogance, became her greatest supporter. He performed with her at charity concerts, not as a mentor, but as an equal, often letting her take the final bow. And every time he introduced her, he ended with the same words: "She taught me the difference between playing notes and playing truth. Emma never let the fame change her. She stayed grounded, surrounded by family, her music, and the children she now inspired. And when asked what kept her going through the darkness, she simply replied, "Because someone, somewhere, believed I had something worth hearing, and now, I'll spend my life making sure others know they do too." And in that, her music never truly ended. It lived on in hearts, in hope, and in the hands of children who finally believed they could play to